Let me get right to a key part of Judge Marrero's ruling and what is really a key part of those who say this is going to be beneficial for 5G, and that's the entrance of Dish into the nationwide market. Why do you feel, if you do, that Dish will become a viable competitor to the likes of Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile nationwide?
Well, the entry of Dish was a significant input to the judge's decision, as I think you said. And there's a lot of factors that go into it, from its spectrum holdings to its financial position that the judge gave a lot of weight to. But stepping back, I think the decision sent two really important messages to the market. First, the judge's decision shut the door on these frivolous, what could have potentially been 50-state AG lawsuits, piling on top of extensive federal review at DOJ and the FCC. So that's a good signal to the market in terms of pro-competitive transactions, not getting stuck in a quagmire of frivolous lawsuits.
But again, back to Dish, Commissioner. They are getting spectrum. They're getting the prepaid business of Sprint called Boost, and they're getting the right to use the T-Mobile network for 7 years. But it's going to cost them an enormous amount of money to really at least realize their ambitions. Are you confident they can actually be that fourth carrier when it comes to 5G?
Absolutely. So with this supercharged network that combining the assets of Sprint and T-Mobile creates, there's a provision in the transaction that gives Dish effectively cut-rate access to that new network. It immediately comes online with customers from the Boost divestiture and has access to infrastructure right off the bat. So particularly when you look at where we were as a status quo wireless market with Sprint, which the judge's opinion, if you look through, really understood that Sprint was dead man walking. So strengthening T-Mobile, bringing in a company like Dish that has the spectrum assets to enter the market and hit the ground running, that's going to be really disruptive, pro-competitive competition that we're excited about.
Yeah. Do you have any expectation Dish is going to have a partner of significance? The judge in his decision yesterday mentioned confidential potential partnerships. Do you know anything in terms of what Dish may be planning?
I don't know the specifics of what that could have been referencing to. But again, I think stepping back, one of the great signals from this, from an antitrust perspective, is the judge understood you have to look to the future. The judge got that simply maintaining the status quo and looking backwards isn't the right approach to a rapidly changing market like telecom and technology. The judge embraced the disruptive new competition that's going to come, particularly looking towards 5G. I think that's the right way to approach tech and telecom transaction. It's a great signal for the economy in terms of pro-competitive deals.
Yeah, Commissioner, I guess building off of what you just said right there, I mean, so much of the pushback, so much of the criticism around this deal had been the concerns around decreasing competition, ultimately leading to higher prices, potentially lower quality services. I realize there's this 3-year window, but how can you be so sure, how can you be so confident that that is not how this plays out?
Well, right off the bat, there are conditions in place to prevent any rate increase from taking place. But more importantly, to your point, for many Americans, they weren't seeing 4 nationwide providers, particularly in rural America. They had 1 or 2 choices. With this combination, for the first time, as the judge's opinion points out, there's going to be 3 providers of the same scale and scope. It is going to be a type of competition we haven't seen. And then on top of that, as you said, Dish coming in with the spectrum assets, with cut-rate access to this network. I'm really excited about the competition that we're going to see in wireless now.
Of course, 5G has been defined perhaps as a national priority by the administration, particularly as it concerns our competition with China. Do you believe that we're well positioned at this point, Commissioner, given the Chinese can mandate things that we can't?
You know, look, in 2016, I thought we were at serious risk of ceding U.S. leadership in 5G to China. This administration at the FCC, we have flipped the script. The U.S. now has the strongest 5G platform in the world, and this transaction lets us extend that leadership by accelerating the build-out of 5G to 99% of the U.S. population. That's a big win, getting rural America 5G on that timescale.
Yeah, to that point, Commissioner, I mean, obviously, it's like another day, another report on Huawei and the pushback in the U.S. On that company as well. Do we have enough competition? Do we have enough companies that are going to be able to come in and help support that 5G initiative that aren't Chinese?
Absolutely. You know, we've taken action at the FCC that effectively prohibits insecure equipment, like equipment from Huawei or ZTE, from going into our network going forward. We have a proceeding looking at taking that equipment that's already in there out of the network. And there's enough equipment suppliers, hardware, and there's these new open access software-based networks that are going to be really good replacements and make sure we have a secure network, which is key.
And of course, the other piece of this is spectrum, and certainly the C-band auction plan has been getting a lot of attention, especially for folks like myself who follow the satellite operators that are going to be paid billions of dollars to free up some of that spectrum for future 5G use, Intelsat, Eutelsat, SES, to name some of them. How is that auction plan playing out, and is it the type of template that's going to continue to be implemented, or is something like a private auction actually going to be on the table so things like 5G spectrum can move faster?
Well, we do have a lot of private transactions that take place, a secondary market. It's been extremely beneficial to moving spectrum to its highest valued use. There are some unique considerations at play with the C-band spectrum. In particular, satellite providers did not have the rights to use this spectrum terrestrially. So that's part of our thinking as to bringing this back to the FCC, doing a public auction of those new terrestrial rights. But it's a big win where we landed this proceeding. There's going to be an auction of up to 280 megahertz of prime mid-band spectrum this year, and that's going to be a real significant boost to building out 5G, particularly in the suburbs and rural America.
Yeah, well, you disappointed a lot of shareholders of the likes of Intelsat, as I think Morgan just mentioned, with a plan that was a bit different than was anticipated. The chairman said, listen, I'm not necessarily in favor of accelerated relocation payments because, well, because of one reason. The reason I favor them is because they would only be paid the full amount, in fact, if they did so in the follow-through. I favor those payments because they're in the public interest. Why are they in the public interest, Commissioner?
Yeah, there's a unique situation here where if we were to try to clear up this C-band spectrum on our own without the assistance of the incumbents that have infrastructure already in place in those spectrum bands, it would have been a pretty slow process for us, potentially 5, 6, or more years. By getting those incumbents on board, it accelerates how quickly we can open this up. That's going to be a big win for the U.S. economy. So from our perspective at the FCC, reflecting through payments the value of the work that the C-band incumbents can do to clear that spectrum more quickly, makes a lot of sense. It's a big win for our economy. It's a good result for those companies as well.
And finally, T-Mobile going to be controlled, owned 40-something% by the Germans, 27% by Japan's SoftBank. No concerns there, though, about thus foreign ownership.
Exactly right. Those ownership levels have already gone through thorough vetting and review at the FCC. And in terms of the decision itself by the court this week, that's a bulletproof decision in terms of appeal. The judge not only looked at economic models, he held a bench trial, judged the credibility of the business plans. Those are the types of decisions that just don't get overturned on appeal. So next up is just a rapid build out of this infrastructure.